refreshing words. It is written, "And they," meaning Christ and his disciples, "went into Capernaum, and straightway on the Sabbath day, he," meaning Christ, "entered into the synagogue and taught. And they," meaning the assembly, "were astonished at his doctrine, for he taught them as one that had authority, and not as the scribes." Mark 1:21-22. After reading these verses, I wondered what was different about Christ's doctrine and teaching method, and why were people so astonished who heard him. I believe there are at least two reasons. First, because those who sat under the legalistic preaching of the scribes and Pharisees couldn't but feel guilty and sad because, according to Paul, the law was a yoke that neither their parent nor them were able to bear. Acts 15, verse 10. Romans 3:19 says that the law did nothing but testify against those who were under the law and were told that their deliverance and eternal peace depended on keeping the law and its ordinances. These lies are still repeated today by false preachers who tell people that Christ did his part and that it's now up to whoever wants to be saved to pray more, fast more, give more, and purify themselves and so on in order to complete what Christ started. However, they know full well that no human being can do those things as perfectly as God required of his own Son. That's why Christ called scribes and Pharisees hypocrites. Matthew 23, verse 13. Second, people were astonished because out of Christ's mouth came knowledge and understanding. Proverbs 2, verse 6. And the knowledge he gave and still gives was and still is the delight of his sheep. Proverbs 2, verse 10. Why? Because the good news of Jesus Christ breaks the yoke of the law, under the weight of which anyone without Christ will always languish. Contrary to those who lay the heavy burden of the law on men's shoulders, Matthew 23, verse 4, Christ kindly, but with authority, tells sinners, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden," meaning by the law, the lies of the Pharisees and of Satan, "and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. It was something unprecedented to see and hear such an ordinary man as Christ, who looked nothing special, according to Isaiah 53, verse 2, talk about complex spiritual matters with so much assurance and authority. Hence, the officers' comment, who, instead of arresting Christ, came back to their masters saying, "Never has a man spoken in this way." John 7:46. After reading the book of Isaiah, Isaiah 61, which is about the Messiah perfectly accomplishing the law, Christ said, "This day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears." Luke 4:21. Paul therefore said, "For Christ is the end of the law, for righteousness to everyone who believes." Romans 10, verse 4. This is the wonderful news that is so astonishing and always so refreshing, even to those who have already received Christ. The disciples Christ taught on the road to Emmaus said that their heart burned within them while Christ was talking to them. They were filled with reverence, love, and gratitude toward the Messiah, Luke 24:32, because he freed them from the burden of the law. Paul also said that it is for freedom that Christ sets his people free, meaning from the burden of the law, Galatians 5, verse 1. He fulfilled everything the law required of them. This is precisely why, after drinking the bitter vinegar, symbol of the bitterness of the chastisement he bore for their sins, he said, "It is finished." John 19, verse 30. Now, finished means finished, does it not? Come to Christ.